The classroom buzzed with the kind of noise only restless teenagers could create. Chairs scraped, pencils tapped, and whispered conversations bounced off the walls. In the middle of this chaos sat Ayan, a thin boy with sharp eyes but a quiet presence. His uniform was faded, his shoes worn out, and his bag looked like it had survived a dozen years. He often sat by the window, staring at the world outside. To his classmates, he was invisible, or worse, the easy target. They called him Rat Boy or Charity Case, mocking the way he never had lunch money or fancy gadgets. But what they didn't see was the quiet storm that lived inside him. That day, their teacher, Mr. Daniels, walked in with his usual air of superiority. His diploma, framed in polished wood, hung proudly above the chalkboard as if it were a trophy. He often reminded students how hard he worked for it, how none of them could ever match his intelligence. While explaining a complex equation, a student raised his hand and smirked. "Sir, why don't you ask Ayan? Maybe he'll solve it." "Oh wait, he probably can't even add two numbers." The class burst into cruel laughter. Even the teacher chuckled. But instead of defending Ayan, Mr. Daniels leaned against his desk and said in a mocking tone, "You know what? If Ayan ever passes one of my tests, really passes, I'll tear my diploma right here in front of all of you." The room erupted in louder laughter. It was supposed to be a joke, a way to humiliate the boy once more. But this time, Ayan didn't lower his head. He didn't laugh. Slowly, he looked up, his voice steady, his eyes burning with quiet fire. "Sir, I accept your challenge." The room fell silent. The weight of poverty. That evening, Ayan walked home through dusty streets. His house was nothing more than a single cramped room at the edge of the town. His mother, a tired but strong woman, was scrubbing clothes in a bucket when he entered. She looked up and smiled despite the sweat on her forehead. "Long day, my son?" she asked. Ayan hesitated, then said, "Mama, my teacher mocked me today. He said if I ever pass his test, he'll tear his diploma." Everyone laughed. His mother's hands froze in the soapy water. She felt anger rising, but she knew anger wouldn't help. Instead, she walked to her son, wiped her wet hands on her apron, and placed them on his shoulders. "Then you will study," she whispered. "You will study so hard that no one can laugh again. You will show them who you are." But there was a problem. Ayan had no books, no tutors, no resources. All he had was determination. That night, instead of sleeping, he walked to the public library. It was nearly closing time, but he begged the guard for a few minutes. He borrowed old textbooks, pages yellowed and torn. At home, he had no desk, so he spread a newspaper on the floor and began solving problems by candlelight. Every mistake was a battle. Every formula was a mountain. And when the candle died, he walked outside and studied under the dim glow of the streetlight. His neighbors whispered, "That poor boy is wasting his time. He'll never get anywhere." But Ayan didn't listen. Each insult only strengthened his resolve. The silent preparation. Days turned into weeks. While his classmates wasted time on games and gossip, Ayan was fighting an invisible war. He memorized formulas by writing them over and over on scraps of paper. He solved equations in his mind while walking to school. He practiced under pressure, timing himself as if every second mattered. Sometimes his mother woke up at night to see him still awake, his eyes red but determined. "Ayan, you need rest," she pleaded. He smiled gently. One day, Mama, you'll see why I can't stop now. At school, Mr. Daniels noticed Ayan's unusual focus. He smirked, thinking, this boy is trying too hard. He'll still fail. To ensure it, Mr. Daniels prepared an exam harder than ever before. Questions twisted and complicated, designed to break the boy's spirit. The day of the test. The big day arrived. The classroom was tense. The students smirked, waiting to watch Ayan fail. Mr. Daniels handed out the papers with a sly grin. When Ayan received his sheet, he took a deep breath. His heart raced, but his mind was calm. He remembered the nights under streetlights, the countless problems he had solved in silence. He began writing. Step by step. Equation by equation. While others grew frustrated, erasing furiously or giving up, Ayan's pencil danced across the paper. His face showed no panic, only quiet confidence. By the time the bell rang, many students hadn't even finished half the exam. But Ayan's paper was filled, each answer carefully explained. The shock. That evening, Mr. Daniels sat at his desk grading. At first, he smirked, expecting mistakes. But as he read Ayan's work, his smile faded. The boy had not only solved the problems correctly, he explained them better than most teachers could. By the end, Mr. Daniels' hands trembled. Ayan had scored the highest in the class. The next morning, Mr. Daniels stood before his students, pale and nervous. I have the results, he announced. And the top student is Ayan. The class erupted in disbelief. No way. Impossible. He must have cheated. But Mr. Daniels shook his head. No. I checked his work twice. He earned every single point. All eyes turned to Ayan. He sat quietly, his hands folded, his expression calm. He didn't smile, he didn't boast, he simply waited. Mr. Daniels swallowed hard. Everyone remembered his promise. The diploma. Slowly, he walked to the wall, took down his framed diploma, and pulled out the paper. His hands shook as the students leaned forward in shock. I underestimated this boy, Mr. Daniels said, his voice heavy with regret. I thought intelligence was about wealth, about resources, about privilege. But today, I learned the greatest lesson of my life. Intelligence is about perseverance, courage, and never giving up. With that, he tore the diploma in half. The ripping sound echoed like thunder in the silent classroom. Some students gasped. Some whispered in disbelief. Ayan just lowered his head, tears welling in his eyes, not because of the paper torn, but because someone finally recognized his worth. The transformation. From that day forward, Ayan was no longer the poor boy. He became a symbol of hope. Teachers treated him with respect. Students, once his bullies, now asked him for help. His story spread beyond the classroom, reaching the principal, the community, and eventually, scholarship committees. For his mother, the moment was priceless. When she heard her son had topped the class, she cried harder than ever before, but this time, they were tears of joy. She hugged him and whispered, "You've given me more than I ever dreamed." Years later, Ayan became a celebrated mathematician. But whenever people asked what motivated him, he didn't talk about the awards, the money, or the fame. He always said, "It started with a challenge. With one teacher who doubted me, and one promise I refused to let become a joke." This story isn't just about Ayan. It's about you. It's about every person who has been laughed at, doubted, or pushed aside. Remember this, your circumstances do not define you. Your perseverance does. The world may laugh. The world may doubt. But one day, when you rise, even those who mocked you will stand in silence, because genius isn't about privilege. Genius is about persistence.